Live from the Pitch Pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, Pitch Stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. On this episode of Pitch Live,
it ended up working out. It took a minute though. He was really busy. He was really busy. I was like, sometimes even when you're pitching, you might come across as annoying, but if you want that placement, you're going to send those follow-ups regardless. It's like, okay, this might be your work, but this is my work too. My client needs a placement, so we're going to send these follow-ups. I ended up interviewing him. That was probably one of my biggest interviews. Yeah, the power of following.
Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Inisi Vox. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who is passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that is possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Nadia Wilson. So Nadia is a former and forever pitch star and someone who's very special to me. Nadia was actually my very first FAMU student intern at Pitch Publicity, starting with us in June 2021 and then continuing on with us a little past her graduation date to June 2022. So a full year. Wow. She'll always have that title of being our first pitch star from FAMU, originally from Jacksonville. She stood out to me right away with her determination and her strategy for landing the internship with us. And then during her time with us, she not only completed our pre-professional program where I had the opportunity to mentor her through her job search, but she also joined me at a major client conference in Florida and even came up to New York for a big media and client event. So since then, Nadia has gone on to do incredible things. She graduated from Florida A&M University with a degree in public relations and has built a career in PR and marketing, working with clients in healthcare, beauty, entertainment. She's currently a publicist at Synergy PR Services in Atlanta. And on top of that, she's interviewed artists for her own podcast called The Renaissance Exchange. Artists like Fridayy, Mariah the Scientist, and Lola Brooke. And she contributes as a writer and a media correspondent for Sheen Magazine, where I've seen she's also interviewed a lot of other very important people. So I'm kind of actually nervous to interview you today, Nadia. Nadia's passion for storytelling and creating space for authentic conversations truly shines through everything that she does. And I can't wait for you to hear from her today. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you.
Well, I'm super excited to chat with you and catch up. But before we get started, I am doing something special this season called Behind the Bio series. So I didn't give you a heads up about this, but I just gave everyone your bio. But I want you to tell us something that people should know about you that's not on your bio or that's not really like publicly out there. Like, what should people know about the real Nadia?
I would say, could it be like a fun fact?
Yeah, anything.
Okay. So in high school, I was a competitive weightlifter, and a lot of people don't know that. I know I'm on the media side of things, but athleticism-wise, that was something that I honestly thought I was going to continue with, but, they did not have that sport in college. So I stuck to the books and things that kind of aligned with my major.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, you and I are similar. We have these fitness backgrounds.
Oh.
And now we're just flexing the phone as we pitch.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I mentioned that you were the very first FAMU Pitch Star. But what initially drew you to Pitch Publicity? How did you even find out about us? I mean, I know I asked you this question before, but maybe you'll be more brave and tell me now that you're not working for me. Like, how did you find out about Pitch? Because I was not advertising this position at FAMU. I didn't know anybody at FAMU. How did you hear about it? And what made you decide to apply?
Yes. So crazy enough, it was another student at FAMU. Her name was Maya. She knew that I majored in public relations. And at the time, I was actually looking for an internship. I know that we had to have an internship in order to graduate. So that was something that I was obviously, looking to have because I already racked up on one internship my freshman year, but first and last PR. And it was in the beauty space. So I wanted to find something a little bit more diverse so I could still get a better understanding of PR, but also pitching more, actually talking to the reporters. And so she sent me Pitch Publicity and I said, what is this? So I went to your Instagram page, kind of scrolled through, looked at the clients, and I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. This sounds like something that I could do. I believe I reached out via email to you and sent my resume, work samples. And then from there, we had like that original call on Zoom, kind of discussing what my expectations were, what yours were, and then things worked out from there.
Well, I'm so glad you were brave enough to apply. I do recall Nadia did one thing that not a lot of students do, and she put right on her resume cover letter, here are the people to call. These are my references. And I remember calling this one professional, Johnny. Do you remember his name?
Oh, Johnny Taylor.
Johnny Taylor, who, by the way, everybody, just go look him up on LinkedIn. He's a really big deal. I didn't know he was a big deal until I called him and looked him up later. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she put this man's cell phone number on her cover letter. But I have to say it was a pretty good tactic because she wasn't scared to kind of put it straight out there and say, hey, these are my references, go call them. And they're going to say that I'm great. And he did. He said that you were great. So, but I want to know, at the time that you were interning with me, I had a lot of gators, from my alma mater working at Pitch. And it probably felt like you were the lone wolf rattler. But when did you feel like you were hitting your stride and that you knew you were in the right role with this internship? When did it feel right?
Yeah, I would say when I started gaining momentum with the placements, sometimes you can write a ton of pitches and you still might not get that placement or you still might not get that response from the media correspondents or reporters. So once I started gaining that momentum and confidence and I started to see, okay, so the pitches, they do align with what the reporters want to actually discuss. The topics obviously were very important during that time as well. So I would say definitely as I started to gain that momentum and then obviously of course, with your mentorship, that also helped, having conversations in the morning on the phone about what I need to do in order to actually help ramp up the placements. So I would say all of that definitely helped.
And out of all the campaigns and clients you were working on, which one left the biggest impression on you and why?
Ooh, either Dr. Ken Redcross or Dr. Lavelle. I would probably go with Dr. Ken Redcross because at the time, I believe his book definitely aligned with what was going on. Everybody could relate, like having those trustworthy conversations with the doctor. Sometimes you get intimidated having certain conversations. So I felt like it was relatable and it was easier to kind of pitch him as well to the media.
Yeah, I think Dr. Redcross was actually the first person I gave you to pitch, wasn't he? And then I remember you actually got to meet him because I had you come to Organic and Natural Health Association's conference, and he was one of their scientific advisors. That's who we were doing the interviews for. What was it like to finally meet him after pitching him for so long and booking him on all these interviews and then meeting him? Did you feel like he was the same person that you were pitching when you met him in person?
So crazy enough, I know I met him also in New York at the
that's right.
too, but we didn't necessarily have a conversation there. Now, when we went to the Natural Health and Organic Conference, that's when we kind of had more of a conversation. So I was like, okay, this is the man behind the book. This is the man that I've been actually pitching. Because honestly, like when you're pitching a client and you don't really have a lot of conversations with them, sometimes it can be a little different trying to make sure that the pitch matches who they are and like their tone and how they would actually come on camera and talk to the reporter. So having that conversation, I was like, okay, this is going to help me, in the long run when it comes to actually writing these pitches. I know how he speaks now. I know his sense of humor. So it made it a lot easier, I would say.
Do you remember when we were at that conference? I was driving him and you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had my mom in the car too.
Yes.
We were going to one of the dinners,
Mm-hmm.
but the four of us were in the car. And do you remember my dog was sick while we were on that trip, and they actually had to rush her to the vet from the daycare facility.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on the phone with my vet, and he was on speakerphone. And Dr. Redcross, who's not a veterinarian, he's a medical doctor for people. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
He was in the back. And like all of a sudden, like he jumps into the conversation, like as my advocate for Winnie, my dog. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I definitely remember that conversation.
I mean, I love that because it's things like that you would not pick up from somebody unless you were just kind of like in person with them. But
yes,
I mean, that even surprised me that he spoke up. He asked my veterinarian, he goes, "Hello, I'm Dr. Ken Redcross." I was like, oh no. And the vet's probably like, who is this? And he's like, I would like to know what Winnie's panels are and like what other things that we can do. And but I mean, it went along with the message that we were pitching about him, about how he was such a caring doctor and how he was representing my dog, which was really surprising, but it must have really, really reinforced to you that you were pitching like the real thing.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I would definitely agree. Like, I was like, okay, so, the dog is not human, but he's still caring and he's still understanding of everything that needs to go on, whether it's a procedure, like you said, the panel. So, yes.
I think Winnie got better treatment after that call because he jumped right in.
Yes.
All right. So we mentioned you coming down to Florida to Cape Coral for that conference. I made you drive down there from Tallahassee. And then you came up to New York for our big client event, and you had to fly from Tallahassee, which is not always easy to fly from Tallahassee. And I remember you were late, not your fault, airline's fault. But you had a lot of like travel experiences with our internship. I mean, it just happened, right? One was you had to drive all the way down the state. The other one you had to fly to us. Tell me a little bit about what the travel experiences were like for you. And did that help you develop or grow during the internship? It wasn't listed on my, internship things of skills that you were going to get. But was there anything from the travel that you learned?
I would say the power of pivoting and also just understanding like, okay, in these situations, just remain calm. Things will work out. You don't have to rush it. Also, sometimes things happen. So maybe I was late for a reason, like, something could have been wrong with the plane. You never know. So kind of looking at those moments as clarity, like it's okay, if things don't work out, but we'll get there. You'll get there. Sometimes you might have to pivot. And in that case, like when the flight was delayed, I know I had to hurry up and get to the venue and I had to change in the bathroom. It was a lot going on, but it was worth it. Like the event, it was amazing. Networking. I know I met I don't want to butcher her name. I believe it's Janae, one of your past.
Oh, yes.
So it was a great experience, I would say.
Yeah, and I remember you came in like right before we started, so you missed the whole setup.
Yes.
But I just remember, and that was the first time that you and I had actually met in person. And I remember you just came in so calm, and I was wondering, how is she being? She must be freaking out inside. Were you really freaking out inside?
On the inside, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm late. I'm missing all of the set. I did. I was upset that I missed like setting up because I was like, that's a good moment to connect with the other interns and actually be more hands-on as well. So in that event, I was like, okay, so once I get there, I just need to make sure that I'm still being hands-on, still talking to people, still engaging, even though I was not there for the setup part.
Mm-hmm. What did you, from the New York trip, what was your biggest takeaway? Because we did some other things too. We had the event. We met with a PR director at Nordstrom's the next day. This was still this was our big event that we had. It was our first event since the whole COVID lockdown thing. So I remember part of it, we were still in mask, and our event, we weren't, but it was all back and forth. But was there anything that especially stood out to you from that New York trip that helped you or that you still keep with you today?
Yes, for sure, Nordstrom. That was an amazing experience, amazing opportunity. I believe I told you a couple of years ago that I was interested in the fashion space. So being able to talk to him, it kind of opened my eyes to see okay, this is what they do behind the scenes, especially at such a big store like Nordstrom. And then of course we got the tour. That was amazing too. Just in general, hearing the information, and it was educational, but it was also entertainment on the side. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I know we all went to, I believe it was lunch, either before or after. And we kind of sat down and talked about the real world and, what would happen when you get to an actual agency outside of the internship. So some of those discussions and talks, of course, us all sitting around the table, sharing our experiences and what we hope, that was also something that I took away too.
We're going to move on to some of what you're doing now. But before we go there, just because we do have so many students that watch this podcast, what do you remember being the most difficult part of the Pitch Publicity internship? And then what was the most fun and rewarding part about your time with us?
I would probably say getting some of these reporters on the phone, or not even just the reporters, just whoever's in the newsroom at the time, because sometimes I would call and I would get a voicemail. It was a lot of voicemails coming through. So I would sometimes get into the mode of, oh God, I know I need to secure a placement today. I haven't secured it in maybe a couple of days, secured one in a couple of days. So I need to try to continue to build that momentum. So I would say that was probably a little difficult for me. I know sometimes we would do those follow-ups too. Sometimes they would not respond to the follow-up. So it's kind of okay, once you get there, you can't just sit there and say, I'm not going to get this placement. What can I do? You have to pivot. You have to make it more timely. You have to look for those news pegs that you would tell us about. So it's a lot of things that I tried to do in order to fix my method and try to secure those placements. So that would probably be the most difficult part, was actually securing the placement, because getting to the pitches, you really did a great job at assisting with the writing and also allowing us to have that free will with the writing. And we would share them to you. You would edit them if need be. But that made me a little bit more comfortable too, because it's okay, this is my work now. So now I can freely pitch. And if I do secure it, okay, I'm doing something right. And then may you repeat the second question or part of that question?
Yeah, just what was the most rewarding?
Okay. I would say the most rewarding was definitely securing those placements. And then also, I know sometimes we would have team meetings where we would kind of share our wins. I really enjoyed that, kind of being able to applaud everyone at once. Sometimes we didn't really all talk unless it was a time of those meetings. So when we got to do that, it was okay, they're doing amazing. And then I know you would shout people out. So that was also a good thing too.
I remember something specifically with you, speaking of just how hard it was sometimes to get a win. And you mentioned James Laval earlier, and you were pitching him. And we weren't really having a lot of luck with him. And I remember being on a dog walk with Winnie. And we just got on the phone and we started hashing it out. Do you remember that pitch, and that we had come up with this angle with the whole Super Bowl thing, and you got a national placement out of it?
Yes, I vaguely do remember that, because I know I was kind of feeling a little defeated at that point, because I'm what is going on? Why are these people not wanting to have a conversation with this guy? So yes, that angle, and like you say, making sure that you can tie it into something that people would want to actually discuss, that definitely helped. So that was definitely a major win for sure.
Yeah, I remember we got on the phone, we just kind of brainstormed it out, came up with this Super Bowl hook idea. And then the next thing I know, I didn't even finish the dog walk. I didn't even get back to my office, and Nadia's I got the booking. It was like a national TV. I was like,
Yes.
that instant gratification, like I feel like when those things happen is, to me, I agree with you. That's like, it makes you feel so good. Like
refreshing. It's like,
you applied it and it worked.
Yes.
All right. So, well, tell us a little bit about, what you're doing right now. Are you still pitching?
Yes. So I am still pitching. A lot of these clients, their lifestyle, I just recently met one of the newest clients, and she's a doctor, and that's who I went to the radio station with. And she pretty much talks about maternal health. And that's something that, of course, it's important not only for women in general, but Black women, just anyone. So it's really important discussions to have. And as I was sitting in there, I was like thinking of different pitches in my head. I'm like, wow, this would be good if we talked about this. This would be great if we talked about that. But yes, I'm definitely still pitching. We don't normally call the stations. We'll do it through email. So it's a little different. But still, I know sometimes we would send emails out too at pitch. So it's less getting on the phone and more so typing up those emails. So it's kind of aligns, just a little different as far as like the phone call aspect.
Yeah, the strategy that your agency's using is a little bit different. Do you still get on the phone sometimes anyway?
Sometimes, yes. I need to call the station. Somebody's going to answer.
I like it that Nadia's not scared. She'll just go do it anyway.
Yes.
It's because you had that pitch experience.
Exactly.
So tell us then, when we did talk about the follow-up, can you give us some things that have been really effective lately in follow-up that you're finding is helpful? Like, especially if you've pitched somebody, didn't work out the first time, going back, what's kind of your go-to things that you start changing that can help kind of break through?
Yes. So I know one thing that I learned from you was sometimes if it's a reporter and they represent a specific outlet, to kind of cater the pitch towards them so it doesn't seem like, oh, you're just sending out email blast. So one thing that I started doing was speaking directly to them. Maybe I'll pull out a quote from something that they've already written or pull out like a link from an article that kind of aligns with what I'm trying to pitch. And I'm like, well, I recently saw your article went live. You discussed this topic. It sort of aligns with my client, but here's a way that we can kind of switch it up so it's still fresh content. And I'll kind of hit them with that strategy to where they're like, okay, this is my beat. This is something that I've, written on in the past. It's newsworthy, makes sense with me. So I'll try to use that strategy when it comes to following up, because I know sometimes they get so tired of seeing pitches all day long and they're like, what's going to stand out? What's going to make sense with me? So
taking the time to really customize it for them so they know they're special.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not just blanket pitching everybody.
Exactly.
So, well, we know that rejection is a big part of pitching. Got to get some really thick skin, which I know you developed at Pitch because there's a lot of rejection. But what's your process for handling rejection? And can you even share a time maybe that you overcame an objection and maybe turned it in a no into a win anyway?
Yes. I would say, honestly, when it comes to facing rejection with PR, it's going to happen. There's times where you might think you have the best pitch ever, and that outlet is like, no, we are not covering this. We've already done something similar. No. And so during those times, like that word that I was saying earlier, like pivoting, it's best to, even though it might be a no, you can change it into a yes. I cannot remember the client, but I know when we had like those presentations, I wrote about it in my presentation to when I was able to kind of pivot a no to a yes. I cannot remember the client from the top of my head, but in that moment, I believe what I did was I obviously changed the pitch and made sure that it aligned with what was going on. And that's where those news pegs come into play, like making sure that something is credible, making sure it's interesting at the time, and making sure that the story that you're trying to give them to tell is actually something worth telling. So I would say that I cannot remember the client.
That's okay.
It's been a time where that has happened and it actually worked. The no did turn to a yes. After a couple of teeth pulling, it turned into a yes.
How has it helped you just in life? Do you feel like you feel a little bit more brave, or that you'll ask for something that maybe you wouldn't have asked for before? There been any, can you give me like a example in your career or even your personal life where you went for it, that you think that really came from building that confidence from pitching?
Yes, actually, maybe a couple of months ago, I went to an event called Blavity Fest, and I was supposed to secure a couple of interviews. And with that, it's kind of like you're pitching yourself to these celebrities or pitching yourself to these publicists, which is so funny being on the other end of things. So I was supposed to interview this gospel artist named Kirk Franklin. I ended up getting able to ask him a question, and he was like, "This is kind of large, loaded question. I don't want to, front you or your followers." He didn't know that I worked for a magazine outlet, so I guess he thought it was just kind of like content. That was
okay.
Instagram. So I was like, okay, understood. I saw he was with his manager or security guard. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hello, sir. My name is Nadia Wilson. I work for Sheen Magazine. I'm looking to interview Kirk Franklin because, mind you, he told me, he said, let's schedule a sit down so I can actually finish this conversation." I said, "Oh, a sit down? Let me go talk to whoever I need to talk to." So I walked up to him and he said, "Absolutely." I said, "Do you have a contact for me? Because you can't walk away without a contact, because how else would it happen?" So I received that contact. I ended up texting her the next day, let her know what happened. I sent her the video of him actually saying that. So she knew it was credible, and she knew I was not just making it up just to
Nadia's like filming herself out.
Yes, let me make
pitching.
sure.
Here's me pitching, is what he said.
Exactly. And so I sent it to her. I told her what the publication was, what it was about, what the interview would be. And so it ended up working out. It took a minute though, because she said that she was really busy. He was really busy. So it took me doing a lot of following up. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to be tenacious about this if I want this opportunity. So I continued to follow up. I was like, sometimes even when you're pitching, you might come across as annoying, but if you want that placement, you're going to send those follow-ups regardless. It's like, okay, this might be your work, but this is my work too. My client needs a placement, so we're going to send these follow-ups. And that's exactly what I did with this interview opportunity. I said, I'm going to send as many follow-ups as I can in order to get this response. And it ended up working out. I ended up interviewing him. That was probably one of my biggest interviews as of lately. So yeah, the power of
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that because, I think that after one or two, maybe three tries, people give up. I've even heard professionals say, after 3 tries, we're done. But I like what you're saying. I mean, if you really want something, just keep showing up and keep showing up until somebody tells you no. I mean, if they don't always say no answer is not a no. I mean, it just might be that we're too busy or the timing. But I mean, you have to give it to somebody if they keep trying.
Yeah.
And if it gets to a point that it is annoying and they really don't want to participate, they're going to tell you no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they're reading those emails, they're seeing those messages, they see it. So if they haven't said anything, like you said, they might just be a little wrapped up in work. And at the end of the day, they might just respond. So.
Well, I've watched your podcast and I think that you are amazing interviewer.
Thank you.
Do you get nervous before interviewing somebody that you kind of feel like is a big deal, or how do you handle that?
So I would say in the past, for sure. But because now I'm kind of used to being in these rooms with these individuals or used to just being around them, it's a little different. And also one tactic that I started doing was making conversation with them before I start asking them questions to kind of see how they will talk, what their tone of voice is, how they are as a person. So I'll kind of chat, have a sidebar. Maybe it's me complimenting them on what they're wearing or just anything like that. I know, recently I went to CBS Atlanta Fest, because that's a new station in Atlanta now. And so they brought like a lot of celebrities, from like these high profile shows. And I was about to interview, the celebrity that's on a Tyler Perry show. And so I just made light small talk with her while the camera guy was setting up. I was telling her, I love her character. And I was like, it's crazy because your character does not align with you. Like, her character is so different. She's kind of like a mean girl on the show, but in person, she was really nice, bubbly, and really light. And so we just talked about that and all those different nuances and just laughed about it. Then we jumped into the interview and I felt really confident and comfortable because I'm like, I feel like this is my homegirl in a sense, like my friend. So I kind of treat them like we're friends, even though I don't know them. It's like, well, right now we're sitting down, so we're friends today.
Yeah, it's like you don't have a ton of time sometimes right before an interview, but if you can just kind of do the Barbara Walters technique and chat them up a little bit, I mean, at least there's some kind of rapport, going into it. And you feel like, the guard is down a little bit more and they're going to hopefully be a little bit more warm to you if you've never spoken to them before.
Exactly.
Because I think you can tell in interviews when someone's interviewing someone and they've never spoken to them again before. It seems a little like walls are up.
Exactly.
So I like that. So you just go in like your friends, even if on the inside you're freaking out going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to this person, and just be human. And because we're all human.
Exactly.
Even if we're a big deal, we're still human.
Yes, we're all human. So just going in with that type of mindset for sure.
So I like that. What else do you do to kind of calm your nerves before an interview? Is there anything else that you do to kind of make sure you're really prepared?
Yeah. So for one, I am a Christian, so I do sit and I pray before I do an interview. I'll ask God, please help me to ask the right questions, not just trying to get an interview, and just trying to get a question out, but make sure it's telling their story. Make sure that it aligns with who I am as a person too, like what the conversation is. And as far as like preparation, I'll sit down and I'll watch like past interviews that person has done, making sure that I'm not asking the same questions as the other interviewers, making sure that it's actually something that will tell their story. Cause a lot of times I'll sit down and see interviews where they're just asking questions and it's like I don't want to be that type of person that's just asking a question just to ask it. I'd rather
questions they gave you to ask.
I'd rather just tell a story or something. Cause at the end of the day, I have to write an article. So the questions literally, every time I'm thinking of questions to write, it literally has to make sense and align with what I'm going to write for the article. So
I like that. So I like what you said first, that you do ask for guidance. And so your guidance is coming from God. You ask for that higher power guidance. I think that's, I always feel like the greatest speakers are preachers. And I think their secret weapon is that if you're doing the thing that a preacher should do, you're praying first. So, if that's your jam, or even if it's just, I think, getting in a space and meditating and really like kind of letting things go and saying, I don't have to stick to the script, and really helping, like you said, pull that story out of them by watching body language and kind of just seeing where the conversation is going. So I like that you're asking for guidance, and it kind of alleviates, I think, some of those jitters. I do the same thing too. It just alleviates some of those jitters in the beginning that it's on you, you put it on God instead. Okay, this is your interview. You figure it out. And then I like how you said about preparing, because I have noticed that in watching your podcasts, especially, I noticed that you'll say things like, you'll reference other interviews they've been on. You say, no, I saw this interview and you said this, but I want to go deeper.
Yes.
And I think that's really good, because I think that also signals to the expert that you're interviewing that I did my research. And I think that's really important to do your research if you're doing any type of interview, even if you're doing a job interview, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Because I feel like people go into job interviews and they don't know anything about the company or the person that they're being interviewed. I mean, you're such at a disadvantage. You agree?
Oh, God. Yeah, I definitely agree. You have to do your research. You have to.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that you have definitely done the whole finding a job thing, and you're still early in your career, but you've had a lot of job search experience. And I know that really intimidates a lot of people. Based on what you've learned so far, What would your advice be to someone who is preparing for an interview that you bring your best to an interview?
Yeah, so one thing that I started doing before I secured this opportunity, I'll go on LinkedIn and see who all works at the company, and I'll message them on LinkedIn. I'll let them know that I am looking to get hired for this opportunity. I won't present it in that way, but I'll present it in like a professional way, kind of ask them questions about their experience there. And sometimes that helps me pull out questions to ask while, sometimes I'll ask, do you have any questions for us? And a lot of times people tell me, they'll say, oh, I don't have any questions at the end of my interviews. And I'm like, girl, I'm going to ask them questions because that shows that you're interested in the opportunity. Yeah. So I'll do my research on the website, LinkedIn, Instagram sometimes, because sometimes on Instagram or different social media outlets, they'll post a lot more about what they're doing and how they're working with these clients. And it could be a little bit more interesting than just sitting on the website all day. Mm-hmm. So I'll do that. I'll kind of write it in like a whole document. So I'll put it in like a Google Doc. The headline could be the company, the role that I'm applying for. I'll research what the role is. Kind of just do my due diligence in making sure that I'm coming to that interview with the most information, with good questions, and showing them that I'm actually interested in the opportunity. So they're like, oh, you really did your research. So you know a lot about us. Yes, I do. Starting with. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like that too. I recently interviewed a student who said to me, I reached out to some of your former interns and asked them what the internship was like. And I was like, of course it's all out there. It's all available for them. But when that student actually told me that, it was like, okay, like they did their homework. And I was like, and what did they say? It definitely turns the tables a little bit. So I really like that you do that you go ahead and make the contacts. And I think too, by making connections to whoever's interviewing you, to their connections, they're going to go on their LinkedIn and see that you have common connections all of a sudden.
Yeah. That'll do it too. Yeah. When they see that, it's kind of like, okay, so they might have really did their research. They're trying to see who's on our team. And that makes it even better, when you're about to start talking to HR, whoever you might have to talk to before your interview or before you get the job.
All right. So give me some details on a little red flags. Now that you've worked for some companies and you've gone through the whole process, if you could go back in time and tell the younger Nadia Wilson, hey, this is a red flag. Maybe don't accept this offer from this company, or what are some things that you're looking out for now that kind of trigger I don't know if I want to be on this team.
Yeah, I would definitely say if so obviously, you want the experience, and obviously sometimes what looks good is not always the best for you, I would say. So always look for things that align with you and also will benefit you in the long run, because sometimes smaller agencies or smaller companies, they don't provide like 401k, or they don't provide benefits like insurance. And me, somebody that's 25 years old, I'm getting kicked off the insurance. So, it's something that you really have to look for. It's not just about the skills and the clients that they have. How will this benefit you in the long run? Because at the end of the day, you have to put yourself first in general. Like, okay, it might be good money, but what is this going to look like in my future? Like, will I be working with them for years and years to come? Is this an agency where I feel like they might hit the ground running and then the momentum will stop and now I'm left high and dry? So definitely doing the research and understanding like, okay, even though they might work with some major clients, who are they working with now, for one? And also like, how are they treating their employees? And just, looking into it a little bit more deeply when it comes to that, building a relationship with HR as well, because I know for the last agency that I worked at, we got HR kind of midway into my career with that company. And it was a little different, kind of navigating that. But she gave really good advice when it came to me, being on this new job search. So I definitely appreciated that. But for one, I would definitely say putting yourself first and actually looking to make sure it aligns with you and your future. Because like I say, all that glitters is not gold.
Right. I was going to say, beware the razzle dazzle, especially like the companies that are like startups or we're going to be a big deal or maybe they're selling you too hard. You know, maybe that could be a red flag.
Yeah.
That you could be part of something. Yeah, you could be part of something or you could be part of a bust too.
Exactly. That's one thing, you know, once they start kind of trying to sell something to you, it's like, okay, I've not seen it yet. What's going on here? Or maybe like months later, you know, because for one, like I was a contractor for my last position and I was looking to become full-time. Obviously, you know, I want those benefits and like I said, the 401k and things of that nature. But during the time, it became so far in the distance. It's like, okay, so I'm not going to be full-time at this moment. Okay. So it's kind of like, you know, don't allow people to sell you dreams either, you know. Look at it for what it is. Don't sit there and think, you know, it's good to be optimistic, but also you have to face reality and understand like, okay, this is what they're showing me or this is what is being shown or presented to me. So I have to take it for what it is.
I like that. Have some reality in there.
Yes.
Well, Nadia, it has been so much fun catching up with you.
Yes.
What's next for Nadia Wilson? You're doing everything right now. You're like a publicist, you're a journalist, you're an influencer. Where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? And then I'll have you back on the podcast and we'll see if you got there.
Okay. I would definitely say for one, career-wise, I would definitely see myself working for a bigger media outlet because Sheen Magazine, they're kind of a smaller publication right now. Don't get me wrong. They're doing amazing things, but I could see myself working for like a Essence or even a Complex one day, something like really major that's really well known. Or even having my own personal platform, like, you know, the podcast is cool, but I would love to have it on a larger scale. So that would be something that I'm really looking forward to. And also, I'm kind of interested in the sports and music industry. So whether that's me doing artist and repertoire, being an A&R for an artist, or even being a publicist for an athlete, that would be interesting too. So I don't know. I have so many things that I want to do, and it's always so difficult because I'm like, I know I can't do it all. But, you know, obviously it's something that takes prayer and guidance, and you want to be on the right track and right path. So something that I'm working on is understanding like, okay, I cannot make my own plans. I have to understand what plan the higher power God has for me. So.
Wow. I see that. I see that in you. I could see that going either way. Maybe the weightlifting Nadia is coming back. No, but I see that. I think in 10 years, I'm going to be like trying to sell you to be on my podcast. You're going to be like, I got to follow up with you like 4 or 5 times because you're going to be so busy. But maybe you'll come back.
No, yeah, that would be great. That would be great. I would never decline.
All right, Nadia. Well, so that everybody else can keep up with you and follow your success. And you've got to watch Nadia's podcast. They are so good.
Thank you.
Hidden talent here. Like, get her now. Essence, Cosmo, whoever, go for it. What's the best way for our Pitch Live community to connect with you?
Yes, so I am active on Instagram, and my Instagram name is forever.nadi. Nadi. And then on YouTube, my YouTube is The Renaissance Exchange. Usually it'll come up if you type it in. So if not, also it's linked in my bio on Instagram to figure out, you know, where to actually find me on YouTube. And that's pretty much it. You know, I'm on LinkedIn too with my full name, Nadia Wilson. So those are like the 2 main platforms, I would say.
Well, Nadia is a natural networker and connector. That's how she ended up at Pitch. And Nadia, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I know you have inspired so many people in your career journey and that you're going to continue to do so. And I want to encourage everyone to share this episode so we can get more people exposed and inspired by all the amazing things that Nadia is doing. And be sure to connect with her on LinkedIn and especially on Instagram so you can see how fabulous her life is. If ever I get bored, I just look at Nadia's Instagram at forever.nadi, Nadi. And thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a rating or review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. I hope you were inspired today to get out there and pitch and to advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
And to follow up, like Nadia says to do. And just make success happen, or as we always say, MSH, right, Nadia?
Mhm. Exactly.
As a bonus, join us at inicvox.com where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link's going to be in the show notes along with all of our social media handles. So let's stay connected and follow each other and support each other in success. So until next time, Nadia, MSH.
Message.
Bye.